Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of Beyond the Cage, this time going live for a interview segment here on MMA UK. Once again, I'm your host, Jim Graham, and today I'll be having a live chat and interview with UFC fighter Gillian the Savage Robertson, who is fresh off her second UFC victory from this past weekend at UFC Liverpool, as she was able to defeat Molly McCann via rear naked choke in the second round. So we're going to get Gillian on here to talk about that win, some other things, what's been going on since we last talked to her after her UFC debut, and of course take your questions as well. So at any time during the broadcast you want to chime in with a question for Gillian, please comment down below and we'll get to that as it goes along. So we're going to invite camera here and we'll start asking her some questions here. And thanks everybody for joining me here live on MMA UK. And how's it going, Gillian?
It's going great. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Of course, everybody, once again, this is Gillian the Savage Robertson, fresh off her victory at UFC Liverpool, and that's what I want to jump into right away here, Gillian, is, of course, that victory. How did this fight, your second fight in the UFC, how did that differ for you in terms of preparation, everything, as compared to your debut in December?
I feel like always the preparation is the same going in there. It's like anything can happen, and it's definitely a serious opponent. So I went in there and just did exactly what I needed to do.
Now, of course, unlike your last fight, this one was overseas. This one was actually, obviously, in Liverpool, England. How was that experience, traveling overseas for a fight instead of just going somewhere else within America, or obviously I know you're originally from Canada, or anywhere in North America, that is?
It was awesome to be able to travel. It was the first time I've ever actually traveled with fighting. So to be able to go overseas, and I've never done that before either. So it was an unreal experience.
Now, I know obviously there's a lot of stuff you got to do. Obviously, you got to worry about making weight. There's media obligations. There's open workouts. There's certain things you got to do. But were you able to do any sort of sightseeing or walking around Liverpool while you were in England?
No, unfortunately, I didn't really get a chance to look around too much. Like you said, just with trying to make weight and everything like that, I'm usually not in the greatest mood to be walking around when I'm down on weight. So I'm just trying to stay in the hotel room.
For sure. Now, of course, this took place. If you're in the UK, it's called Remembrance Day. But if you're here in the United States, it's Memorial Day. But is there if you weren't fighting, do you typically do anything for this holiday weekend, or is it just another weekend for you?
It's just another weekend for me. If I wasn't fighting, I'd probably just be in the gym.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to this fight here that you had against Molly McCann. Obviously, she was the hometown girl, being an English fighter. Did that give you any pause taking this matchup? Know that people are going to be booing on you and everything like that?
I feel like it almost takes a lot of the pressure off of me, because then it's like when you're walking out and you hear everybody cheering your name, then she has a lot to prove, where it's like I had nothing to lose going out there.
Now, I think this happened, if I remember correctly, and you can correct me if I am wrong, there was a lot of chanting going on, at least in that very first opening minute or two. Did you notice that at all? Did that give you any sort of, you're like, whoa, this is weird, people are chanting or anything? Or were you in the zone, in the moment, just all you focused on was competing against Molly?
I definitely, when I was walking out, I definitely heard people booing me. But yeah, it doesn't really affect me. I feel like once the cage door closes, all it is it's you and her, and there's nothing else really. You don't notice any noises outside except your corner's talking to you.
Now, of course, in this fight, it started out obviously on the feet like every fight, but I want to showcase and talk about your stand-up, because I thought it looked very good for the moments that you were on the feet. Is that obviously something that you've been working on a lot? Because a lot of people know you have that jiu-jitsu background.
Oh, it's definitely something I'm working on everything all the time. I am training usually 2 to 3 times a day, and I just went back to training today again, and so I'm always in the gym working on everything. So my stand-up is definitely something that I have been improving on, but obviously the focus on this fight was just to get it to the ground.
And get it to the ground you did. About midway through the first round, you were able to shoot in for that takedown, change levels very nicely. You got the fight to the ground. In the first round, it ended. You got to the second round, you were able to kind of pick right back where you left off. And especially in that second round, did you feel her start to kind of panic at all? Because it didn't look in that second round that she looked very comfortable, and it didn't look like she wanted to be there on the ground with you.
I felt like once I got it down to the ground on the second round, I definitely knew that it was going to be over. I thought it was in the first round. I thought I'd be able to find the submission, but she was doing good at defending. But I knew going back to her corner, I knew that she thought she lost, and I knew that she had a lot to make up coming back in the second round.
And of course, like I said, in the second round, you got the fight to the ground. You were kind of up against the cage there for a little bit. It looked like she tried to spin out of it, but you took that opportunity to come around, take the back, and obviously then got the rear naked choke for the finish. Looking at the finish, obviously she did not tap. Did you feel her go out at all, or was it just as soon as the referee came over, you're like, oh, I guess it's over?
No, I definitely felt her go out. I feel like the ref stopped it a few seconds late, but I was just sitting there waiting for the ref to call it. So I definitely felt her go out though, about 4 or 5 seconds before he ended it.
Now, of course, you've gotten several submission victories in your career, at least in terms of mixed martial arts. Maybe in the gym it's been different, but have you ever actually choked someone out without them tapping before, or was that a first for you?
That was a first for me.
Was that kind of a weird feeling? Like all of a sudden you just feel like a lump, kind of you have to go around to make sure that she's okay and everything like that?
It definitely is a weird feeling. It's so like you almost hope for the tap, but like I said, I was just waiting for the ref, so I just gave it those few extra seconds. And obviously, like I knew Molly was a tough girl, so we didn't really expect a tap from her.
Now, of course, this was your second victory in the UFC. I thought you did really well, but now that you've gone back, like you said, you just went back to training today. Is there anything you felt you did wrong in that performance? Is there anything you're kind of looking at, I could have done that a little bit better, or do you feel like overall you did really well?
I feel like there's always things to work on no matter what. Like I said, my stand-up always needs improvement. I was a little bit too far on a lot of my takedown attempts, so I could have had better footwork on those shots and just had my feet closer together. And it's all just little things that I need to correct in my game.
Now, of course, I just saw, I believe it was on the UFC's website, that your birthday was May 17th, was just a few weeks ago. So happy late birthday. And
Thank you.
what did you do? Did you do anything special to celebrate?
No, I was cutting weight, so I wasn't able to do anything for my birthday. After the fight, we went out and we celebrated, and that was my birthday celebration for me.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to eat cake when you got to worry about making weight, right?
Oh, definitely.
Now, speaking of making weight, this is something I wanted to ask you about for a couple different reasons. Obviously, she's a fellow UFC fighter and obviously also accomplished jiu-jitsu practitioner like yourself. But a lot of people got on Mackenzie Dern a few weeks ago for her missing weight against Amanda Cooper. A lot of people think that maybe she should be forced to fight up in your division, the 125 division. I was wondering, what did you kind of think about Mackenzie missing weight and maybe the possibility of her actually, being forced to move up to 125?
I agree. I feel like she should probably be forced to move up to 125 at this point. Like 7 pounds is a lot to miss by, and I believe at this point that Mackenzie's missed weight more than she's made weight in her professional career. So I feel like it's probably time to decide to move up.
Now, if you could put yourself in the shoes of Amanda Cooper, do you still think you would have took the fight in that situation? Do you think you would have said, you know what, nope, it's not worth it?
I'm not sure at that point because it depends how much Amanda really had to cut. Because if she killed herself to get down to 115, and it's like to see someone step on the scale 7 pounds over, it's like they didn't even try. So Mackenzie's coming in a lot healthier fighter than Amanda was, no matter what.
Now, if Mackenzie does in fact get forced up to 125 or just actually decides to fight at 125, is that a fight you could see somewhere in your future?
Oh, definitely. I would love to take that fight. I feel like she'd be a great matchup for me.
Now, speaking of jiu-jitsu, of course, there's a lot of, like your fight and your first fight in UFC was on UFC Fight Pass. Of course, they have like Polaris, they have Eddie Bravo Invitational, and things like that. And of course, the one coming up, I believe, is the women's bantamweight division, if I'm correct, which I think I am. Would you ever do one of those big Polaris or EBI or something if you got the opportunity to get invited, or you saw that that's something you really wanted to, in between, obviously, your actual MMA fighting?
Yeah, I definitely would. I've always been interested in competing in jiu-jitsu. And actually, if I was looking at competing in a gi competition, and then I ended up getting the news of this fight, and it was around the same time, so I wasn't able to do it. But I'd love to be active in the jiu-jitsu world too.
Have you ever actually done any belt level a competition, either gi or no gi?
I have, but not in a really long time. I think I was maybe a blue or purple belt last time I competed in gi, so it'd definitely be interesting to go back and try.
Now, of course, speaking of another congratulations, not only did you have your birthday a few weeks ago, but a few weeks before that, you actually just got your brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So congratulations on that. And how does it
Thank you.
feel being a brown belt now?
I guess it's no different than being a purple belt, white belt. It's just, I feel like it's all just a process, you know? I'm just in it for the long run, really. It's been 7 years now, and it's just, the color doesn't really matter as much, just getting better every day.
Right, absolutely. And now I wanted to ask you, this is kind of a little bit of a joke question, but I saw Alimale McFarland posted on her Twitter that she just got her brown belt recently as well, and she said she promptly got tapped by a white belt while rolling in practice. So I was wondering, did anything like that happen, or so far have you been able to tap all the white belts?
No, I've been successful with all the white belts so far.
All right. We'll take a question from one of the viewers here. We got a question from Joe Barton. He was wondering, when do you think you'll get your title shot?
I'm not sure. I feel like I'm probably a few fights away from that, but I'm definitely gonna keep on working to fight my way up to the top.
Now, of course, speaking of your division, the flyweight division, obviously a person you know from your time on The Ultimate Fighter, she's the current champion, Nico Montoya. But a lot of, I guess, somewhat hate, and obviously she lashed back, had a big post, against Ariel Helwani, saying she's been hurt, that's why she hasn't fought. What do you kind of think about, her situation possibly? Obviously, at some point, looks like she's going to fight Valentina Shevchenko. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts about the champion, Nico.
Yeah, well, obviously I was in the house with Nico, so I definitely got to get closer with her, and I've been talking with her over the last few months, and she's pretty much had everything go wrong with her, just physically. She wasn't, like you said, I believe she had tonsillitis, she's had a broken foot, she just had everything it's stuff that she can't prevent. I know she's not ducking Shevchenko at all. It's just things that are out of her control have happened, really.
Right, absolutely. We got a couple. Let's go with some more questions here from the viewers. I got a question here saying, would you ever date a Scotsman?
Right now, my only love is for the game, so.
All right, well, there you go. There's your answer there. We got another congratulations on your victory. I want to get to, speaking of the Ultimate Fighter, I want to get that because obviously on the show you were coached by Justin Gaethje, and then obviously you're at American Top Team. That's where you're training. Guy who's trained there a lot over the years, Dustin Poirier. Those two recently fought. I was wondering, what did you think about that fight? Was that a hard one for you to watch, knowing both guys so well?
That definitely was a hard one for me to watch, but I knew that was going to be exactly what it was, just an awesome matchup because both of them are just killers.
Now, obviously, a lot of people are talking about, while Gaethje obviously extremely skilled, maybe you should work on trying to actually not get hit with some punches. Is that something that maybe you think you might need to adjust moving forward?
It's definitely what I go for. I don't like getting hit, but it's gotten him several 50K bonuses, so I guess it's working for him.
Now, of course, for Dustin, he got that win. He now gets his chance to rematch Eddie Alvarez. Of course, those two had already fought previously. It ended in a disqualification, no contest. They're going to fight here coming up this summer. What do you think about Dustin taking on Eddie Alvarez again? I think it's in July, if I'm not mistaken, or the end of June, somewhere around there.
I think that's another really good matchup. It's going to be another firefight, and Dustin's hands have just looked better and better, and I feel like it's definitely going to be a war, but I see Dustin coming out with his hands getting raised.
Now, of course, speaking of that, you have a teammate fighting on that same exact night, I believe, the former champion of the world, Joanna Jacek. Obviously, she's taking on Tisha Torres, coming up. How's Joanna so far looking in training camp, and what do you think about her against Tisha?
Oh, like I said, today's my first day back in training, so that's actually who I was working with all day. And she's feeling good. She's feeling strong, and all we did was jiu-jitsu rounds today, but she felt really good, and I feel like that's going to be, it's an awesome matchup for her.
Now, what is it like working with her? Obviously, someone who's been to the top of this sport, obviously someone who's defended her title many times. What's it like just being around someone like Joanna day in and day out there at the gym?
I feel like it's just a different mindset. You can just feel like she just has a different pace that she pushes constantly. She's never going to give any little thing up to you in the gym. She's trying to win every second of every round, and she just has that champion mindset. You can definitely feel it.
Now, of course, with you winning here in May, your last fought in December, are you expecting another kind of longer gap like that, or would you like to get back in there for your third fight a lot quicker this time?
Oh, I'm ready whenever they call me. I'm just waiting for it. I'm like, after my last fight in December, I was asking for a fight the day after, and I'm still at that point. I have no injuries. When I got in there and got out of there, I'm perfectly fine, so I'm ready to go again.
Now, of course, I mentioned Mackenzie Dern earlier, but is there anyone that you were kind of looking at or had your eye on as far as a potential next opponent here for the UFC?
I'm open to anyone as long as I'm moving up. I just want to keep on climbing the ranks to keep on moving up.
Now, let's get back to UFC Liverpool here because the main event, I'm not sure how much you saw of it and how much you watched, but obviously a lot of controversy on that with Darren Till missing weight and then giving up 30% of his purse. But when it came down to the fight, a lot of conflicting opinions. A lot of people are of the belief that Stephen Thompson won, but when it came down, every judge scored it in favor of Darren Till. But I was wondering, what did you think about the fight? The missed weight and all kind of the circumstances around that main event there between Till and Thompson.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch the fight really. I was just sent back to the hotel right after, and I didn't get a chance to, well, we didn't have it on the TV there, so I didn't get a chance to watch it. But obviously missing weight is always something that, it's just unprofessional in general. We have two jobs, one to make weight and one to go out there and perform, and you can't do one of them. It's just unprofessional all around.
Absolutely. And do you think that's something, obviously, they've added more, women's weight classes, with now 115, 125, 135, and 145. Do you think that's something, at least on the men's side of things, that they maybe adding more weight classes might help with that, having like a 175, a 165, maybe even a 195? Do you think that might help kind of mitigate some people missing weight?
I definitely think so, especially around those heavier weight classes where there is such a large gap. When I go from 55 to 70 is a huge gap. So I feel like that might need to happen. They might need to implement more weight classes in order for it to help them make weight better.
The main reason I ask that is because I think it's been out there, but the last 13 fighters that have missed weight, the fighter who's missed weight has won 12 times. So obviously it seems to be an issue. And other than that, do you think of anything that you could think of that might help everybody make weight and obviously make weight safely?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like, I feel like a fighter needs to choose the right weight class, and obviously in a case like Mackenzie Dern, I don't feel like she's choosing her right weight class. She's trying to make a cut that's just obviously not going to work for her body type. Like, I used to fight at 115 and I moved up to 125 because I realized I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't make that weight. So I feel like some fighters just need to be honest with themselves that they can't do that anymore.
Now, is there anything in particular you do to make weight? I know a lot of people like using the sauna, and the garbage bag type suit thing. Do you do a lot of that stuff? Obviously, dieting obviously helps, but is that sort of things you do? Or is there any sort of new age method that I don't know about that you like to use?
No, I just the typical ways, I guess. I diet down as much as I can. I can usually get within like 7 or 8 pounds, and then the night before, I like to work off as much as I can, just hitting pads with my coach with like a sauna suit on. And then the next morning, I woke up with a pound and a half left to go the morning of. So I just got in the sauna for, I think it was like 30 minutes, and I was good. So it was an easy cut.
Now, I heard one of the fighters, I think it was Kevin Lee, he was saying, I think it was in Atlantic City, that the sauna wasn't open at the right time, and that's why he missed weight. Is that something you always make sure that you're on the right time, is like when the sauna's open at the hotel, especially like you said, when you're traveling, overseas and you're not in a setting that you're used to, or even just a different city in America?
Well, the UFC usually takes care of us pretty well. From the day that we showed up, they let me know the times that the gym was open, where the sauna was, and where everything is. So it's all fairly accessible for you.
Okay. Well, that's good. All right. I just wanted to make sure on that. Just he brought that up the other day, and I just found that really interesting. But now, is there do you really regimate and kind of look at and kind of go down to the ounce, what weight you have to be on a certain day, or are you a little more, well, as long as I'm around here, I'm okay?
Usually about that. Like I said, I don't have too rough of a cut, so it's not too bad. I can diet down pretty like fairly easily, and then the sweating like 7 or 8 pounds is nothing. So it's not something I worry about too much.
All right. Now, in terms of when you're preparing for a fight, this is the second fight now that you've had in the UFC. How much like video or tape do you watch of your opponent? Is that something you really study on, or is it just something you watch a few times to kind of get a general basis of what they like to do inside the cage?
It's definitely something that I study. You can pick up a lot of tendencies, things that your opponents like to do, and almost put yourself in there. So when you're watching your opponent, you know exactly what's going to come in. You're waiting for that moment. You're just waiting for, their everything that they like to do, every game plan that they're coming in with, you have something to counter it. And I feel like it definitely helps to study your opponent.
Do you always find it odd when you hear either on a UFC broadcast or you just hear in passing other fighters that don't watch film of their opponents? Does that kind of like what's the word, blow your mind that they're not watching what their opponents do? I'm not, like I said, like not in painstakingly detail, but even just once, going on Fight Pass and watching what they're doing.
I don't know, because I used to, like, I never used to watch my opponents, really. It's just something that I've started picking up more that I get to a higher level. I feel like I can break down my opponents a little bit more. I have a little bit of a higher fight IQ. So I don't know. I feel like it's every fighter's preference of what they like.
All right, we got another question here from one of our listeners. Do you think there should be some sort of pre-weight for fighters, like when they check in during fight week, to help make it safer, or do you kind of like what they have in place currently?
They actually do that right now. Is they make us weigh in whenever we first show up on. So the day that we show up, which is usually like a week out, they make us weigh in. Then they make us weigh in for the actual weigh in, and then they make us weigh in fight day to see how much that we're gaining back, just to monitor it. So I don't think there's any like consequences or anything in line with that, but they are monitoring it right now just to make sure how much fighters are cutting from the day that they show up till the day it weigh-ins.
Do you think having on either the day after you arrive there, or actually the day you arrive there, I guess depending on which day it is, do you think maybe adding some consequences to it right there instead of just simply on the day before the fight also may help give a little push to some of those fighters that are having struggle in making weight, to make sure they're already on weight when they get there?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, I feel like a lot of these fighters they're not being real with themselves about how much weight they have to lose. They're going in there the week before fight week. I believe Mackenzie Dern said she walked in and she was at 139 the week before. I'm like, there is no way you can expect to make 115 if you're 139 the week before. It's just unrealistic.
Absolutely. Now, I want to get to a couple of fun questions I have for you. Of course, it's now the unofficial start of summer. We just had Memorial Day weekend. Of course, there's a lot of big summertime movies. Of course, we've already had the Avengers. We have a new Star Wars movie, Han Solo, Ant-Man and the Wasp is coming out. I'm sure there's other summer movies. Deadpool. Is there any summer movies that you've seen or you want to see, or do you not really care about that sort of thing?
Deadpool is definitely one that I want to see. It came out the day after my birthday, and that's definitely, I love the first one, and I just haven't gotten around to see it because of all fight week things, but that's definitely one on the top of my list.
Well, as someone who's seen Deadpool 2, it is very hilarious. There's some characters that show up from the comic book world that you don't expect to be in there. I'm not going to say who because I don't want to spoil it for you, Gillian, but I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's a great follow-up to the first one. So that you can take that for what you want.
It's awesome to hear.
Let's see. We got another question here coming in. Let's see. Are weight restrictions on how much you should be allowed to cut during a fight camp? I think they meant like, should they restrict how much actual physical weight that you're cutting for a weight class? I think that's what the question meant to say.
I believe they do that in ONE FC right now. And I believe that's smart. It's a healthier way to monitor the fighters through the camp. And I feel like the UFC is almost waiting for something to go severely wrong before they actually start placing restrictions and things like that. Like I said, I feel like ONE FC, they had someone who I believe died from a weight cut, and that's what made the restrictions come into play. And I feel like it's gonna have to be something severe like that for the UFC to actually want to make a change.
And that's unfortunate. You would think that they would want to be, because they've been proactive in a lot of things, taking care of fighters like yourself, obviously developing that whole UFC Performance Institute out there in Las Vegas and helping people with that. So you would think this would be something they would want to be proactive on. But all right. Before I let you go, Gillian, this is something I wanted to ask you because my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school here in Michigan next week is doing a celebration of women in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well as promoting. Her name's Sandy, so I want to give a shout out to Sandy because she's 65 years old. She's a grandma. She shows up sometimes 2 or 3 days to train Jiu-Jitsu, and she's actually going to be promoted to a blue belt after 2.5 years. So we're promoting her as well as celebrating women Jiu-Jitsu. So I wanted to ask you, as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, if you have any advice for any women or girls that want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or martial arts, and kind of what has Jiu-Jitsu meant to you so far in your life?
I feel like every girl should do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's something, I feel like it teaches you that you're a lot stronger than you think you are. When you go in there and there's little girls who can, like my size, who are 130, 140 pounds, and handling guys who are like 180 pounds. It's just something empowering about that. And it's definitely a confidence builder. I feel like all women should train Jiu-Jitsu.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you answering that for me, and I wanted to pass that along because I know that's something my gym is very proud of doing coming up next week. So she is the Savage, Gillian Robertson. Again, you can follow her on Instagram at savage_UFC. And before I let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to, any sponsors, any friends, family, anything like that before I let you go?
I just want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Sand Viper, and Iron Jaws Custom Mouth Guards, and always to my gym American Top Team and my coach, Dean Thomas. And that's it, yeah.
All right. Well, again, she's the Savage, Gillian Robertson. Again, follow her on Instagram at savage_UFC. And Gillian, thanks for joining me once again for another interview. I really appreciate taking time out of your busy schedule, and I look forward to you fighting again here in 2018.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll see you later. Once again, that was the Savage, Gillian Robertson, right here on MMA UK as part of Beyond the Cage with me, Jim Graham. For more Beyond the Cage, please like us on Facebook at facebook.com/BeyondTheCagePodcast, or follow me on Twitter at Jim Graham. And of course, visit MMAUK.net for the latest and greatest breaking news, opinions, and articles on the world of mixed martial arts. And also you can follow along right here on the page, facebook.com/MixedMartialArtsUK. So for Gillian Robertson, I am Jim Graham. Thank you for joining me for another interview edition of Beyond the Cage right here on MMA UK. Goodbye, everybody.